Guys, this is the first time in Drake's entire career that I have seen him being painted in such a negative light. I mean, Kendrick's made allegations against him that are so hard to come back from. Drake has proved that Kendrick was fed fake information on him, and people hate Drake so much that they still don't care that Kendrick was lying. They just want to see the downfall of Drake. Drake has 20 different rappers going against him. Kendrick dropped a #1 global hit against Drake that everyone's bumping. Drake's streaming numbers have fallen over 5% since this entire beef started. Meanwhile, Kendrick's are up 50%. And the most recent diss track he dropped has over 1 million dislikes on YouTube. So needless to say, it's not looking very good for Drake right now. And we're gonna help him out in this video because I don't think this is the end for Drake. This was definitely career damaging, but I don't think it was a career shattering move by Kendrick. I think there's a couple ways that he can sway the public opinion back in his favor again. But we gotta keep in mind that this is very different from any beef or situation Drake's been in before. This is not 2015 when Meek Mill accused him of having ghostwriters. This is not 2018 when Pusha T exposed that he's hiding a kid. This is much more serious. He's dealing with a much tougher opponent. The allegations are way worse than anything he's ever been accused of, and it's going to be a long climb back up to the top. So let's jump into what Drake can actually do to make sure this does not destroy his entire career. Now, where Drake goes from here is going to be very, very interesting, right? I think Drake is in the most difficult moment of his career in terms of how he's going to clean up his brand and win the public over again. Kendrick just had the most streamed solo rap song in Spotify history, taking over Drake's record. The song that Kendrick used to break that record is a song where he's literally just going in on Drake, calling him a PDF file the entire time. You already have the entire internet chanting stuff like A minor or certified PDF file or OV-Ho. This song is bigger than Kendrick and bigger than this beef at this point. This is like a global hit. And I said this from the beginning, like Drake wasn't just going up against a skilled MC, right? Because he's done that in the past. He's beefed with Common, he's beefed with Pusha T, he's come out of that okay. Kendrick is a different type of opponent. Kendrick is a global superstar and, of course, an incredible MC at the same time who is so versatile and can go from dropping diary-type songs like Meet the Grams, where he's writing letters to Drake's entire family, to then dropping West Coast bangers like Not Like Us, where he has the entire world listening and chanting the disses that he's made against Drake. And it's crazy to me that Drake was blindsided by this and didn't see this coming based off Kendrick's hit-making history and the versatility he's shown in all of his music. But let's break down where Drake kind of goes from here, right? Because, again, Drake has went up against MCs in the past. Drake has taken L's to guys like Pusha T in rap beefs. In 2018, things look very similar for Drake when Pusha T kind of exposed his kid and Drake refused to respond and engage in the beef. He definitely took his first L. Now, the difference here is the fact that Pusha T's diss song against Drake was not a hit record. The story of Adidon, where he exposed Drake's kid, that wasn't a hit. That was just a crazy expose on Drake, revealing very shocking information. The difference here is that Kendrick dropped a hit against Drake, and he's dissing Drake with allegations that aren't surface level, like, oh, you were hiding a kid from the world. This is a lot worse. You're already hearing that brands like Nike and the NBA are telling Drake to stop engaging in this whole thing because these PDF file allegations are extremely serious and they're terrible for business. You can't have a spokesperson for Nike or for the NBA or these giant corporations be associated with any sort of allegation in relation to minors. It's a terrible look. So not only are these bigger brand deals holding Drake back from being able to kind of engage in this whole thing, but Kendrick swayed the entire public to view Drake in this horrible, horrible light with these horrible allegations made against him. Whether they're true or not, the world is chanting OV-Ho and certified PDF file and trying to strike a chord, but it's probably A minor. Like, the world is chanting that, you've already lost. So it'd be very difficult for him to continue engaging in this whole beef and can bring him down a really dangerous path of losing a lot of massive, massive endorsement deals. And another major difference between this and his beef with Pusha T, beyond, Kendrick's allegations or disses against Drake just being a lot more serious than Pusha T's, 2018 was a much different time, right? When Drake was beefing with Pusha T, he had Scorpion on the way. He was about to drop one of the biggest albums of his career. He already had God's Plan and Nice for What at #1 on the Billboard charts. He already had hit songs like Yes Indeed with Lil Baby, Look Alive with Blockboy JB. He had massive features that were on the charts. 2018 was a massive year commercially for Drake. So even though Pusha T kind of put a little chink in his armor by revealing that he was hiding a kid, at the same time that he was beefing with Pusha T and losing, he was also #1 on the charts. So all he had to do was continue dropping hits, drop that massive Scorpion album, And it was very, very easy for him to win back the love from the public because he also just stopped engaging in that beef. Where he messed up with Kendrick is he went on defense and started referencing the PDF file allegations, referencing the allegations that he's had with minors, and feeding into Kendrick's disses, which only fuels them and adds more validity to them and puts more attention on them. Plus, before this beef even happened, Drake was not in the same position as he was in 2018. His last album definitely did well on the charts, but not nearly as well as an album like Scorpion. And it got a lot of criticism for trying too hard to appeal to the younger generation, dumbing down the lyrics, trying to incorporate Lil Yachty's style too much into it. There wasn't major hits off his last album like there were on Scorpion. And the songs that were big were kind of carried by artists like Sexy Red or Yeat, which isn't a great look for Drake. A lot of people thought that it was a desperate attempt at Drake to connect to the youth by having people like Sexy Red or Yeat on his hit songs. And it seemed like for the first time in his entire career, Drake was in a predicament where he wasn't leading the next generation, but he was almost trying to chase the trends of the next generation. And this is important because in 2018, when he was dropping all those hits, even though Pusha T was dissing him, he was still loved by the culture. He was still looked at as that guy, as the biggest guy in hip-hop. You fast forward to 2023, he drops For All the Dogs. People are looking at him like he just dropped potentially one of the worst albums of his career, and he's chasing trends, and maybe he fell off. That was definitely a bigger narrative once that album first dropped. And this beef almost acted like a catalyst for Drake to fall off even harder based off the narrative that was already going around after his most recent album dropped. Again, it was easy for him to come back from the Pusha T situation because he had #1 records at the time. It won't be as easy for him to come back from the Kendrick situation because right now he does not have #1 records. He doesn't have the same love from the public and from the culture as he did 6 years ago. You could even see by the streaming numbers of both Kendrick and Drake's diss tracks, Drake's tracks are getting streamed a lot less than Kendrick's. So it's obvious that his music isn't resonating the same way it was. And for that reason, he can't just kind of shut up about this beef and expect that he could just drop a massive album like he did with Scorpion and win back over the public. Because already with his most recent album and with the narrative for the last few years, honestly, with his career, is that he's been trying too hard to chase trends. His music isn't hitting the same. He's not having as massive of hits as he was years ago. So honestly, he's going to have to really step his pen up and drop some of the best music that he has in his entire career. And what I do like about this entire beef in terms of Drake's performance, while I think he was extremely uncalculated with the timing of his diss tracks, with the subject matter within them, with almost every move he made in the entire beef, I do think that he definitely made a decent effort in strengthening his pen and strengthening the sound of his music overall. The quality of production on songs like The Heart Part 6, on certain beats on Family Matters, like the production there is great, and his performance isn't bad either compared to For All the Dogs. So again, I don't think he's in his top form or his peak lyrically, stylistically, based off the output of music that we've heard over the last few years. I just don't think he's in peak form in general. So it'll be a lot harder for him to put out an album with undeniable smash hits and shut everyone up about this beef, because I just think it's harder for him right now to make hits than it was 6 to 8 years ago. With Views, Scorpion, More Life, like he was making hits effortlessly. Fast forward to 2024, you got albums like Honestly Nevermind, Her Loss, For All the Dogs. There was some decent music on those projects, but there was no hits with close to the same magnitude as stuff like God's Plan or Passion Fruit or One Dance or anything that comes close to that. So again, if he wants to pull a similar move as he did in 2018, where he just shuts up about the beef and drops a hit record to distract everyone from the L that he took from Kendrick, I just think that's going to be a bigger uphill battle because he lacks the inspiration or drive to put out quality, timeless hits that he had around 6 years ago. Now, I mean, aside from that, what he could hypothetically do as well is continue engaging in this beef and just completely omit from mentioning anything to do with PDF files or the allegations Kendrick's made against him going forward, right? Because that's going to destroy his endorsement deals that he's got with brands. That's going to destroy his reputation in general, because a big factor of, or portion of Drake's fan base, better yet, is women. There's not something that's going to turn women off more than you being a PDF file. So if that's the stigma or reputation around Drake going forward, it's definitely going to lose him a large or decent amount of his following. So beyond just losing those brand deals, him continuously trying to fight off those allegations and putting more attention onto them is just going to turn more of his fan base off from him and his music going forward. So he's a chess player. I'm sure he's smart enough to know that he should just leave those allegations alone. And if he does engage in this beef, I think he's got to do what Kendrick just did, which is drop an undeniable hit where he's just kind of going at Kendrick the entire time. And really, this seems to be the only way that Drake has ever won a rap beef in general, right? Is when he drops an undeniable hit. Back to Back was undeniable. Stay Scheming was undeniable. I think at this point he should realize that he doesn't have the stamina or the natural talent on a writing level to be able to throw out diss tracks as fast or as intricate as Kendrick is doing. So he's got to kind of play to his own talents, and which is hit making, and focus on dissing Kendrick and swaying public opinion through a hit record. If he doesn't do this, I think he should just stay quiet about this whole thing. I really don't want to hear him ever throwing out a subliminal on this. I know that that's a big thing that he does with his music is, you know, he often will just not say someone's name directly, but just basically throw sneak disses or, you know, subliminally mention them in verses. And that's another thing, right? Like, I think this was really one of the first moments in Drake's career where we've heard him directly speaking to and dissing his opponent. Yes, we also heard him do that with Pusha T, but even in the Meek Mill situation, even when he was dissing Common, a lot of the bars that he had against those guys, he never called them out by name. This is one of the first times where we've actually heard him do that, and I think he knows that his strong suit is more taking that petty approach where he passive-aggressively throws a shot at someone where he doesn't fully address them, and you don't really know if he's definitely talking to that person, but he makes some sort of slight reference where if you know the information he's talking about, then you know he's talking about that specific person. And anyways, I say all that to say, I don't want him to come on an album like he did on Scorpion, throwing subliminals at Kendrick the entire time. I don't want him on defense trying to, you know, diffuse these allegations that are made against him by Kendrick. Honestly, I didn't think from the jump it would be smart for him to engage in this beef, and at this point I definitely don't think it'd be smart for him to keep going unless he's got an undeniable hit to release that takes aim at Kendrick. More than anything, I think what would be even more effective than Drake dropping a hit record like Back to Back or Drake dropping a hit album like Scorpion after the Pusha T beef, I think what would be even more impactful at this point in time is pulling a J. Cole route. And I don't mean apologizing. I mean dropping an album with 0 features, everything handled by yourself, where you take it back to your roots and you give people the best musical performance you've given since Nothing Was the Same or Take Care. Like, you really sit there long and hard for months and months and you put out your own version of a 444 or a Good Kid Mad City, where there's a constant theme to the album, where you're being more self-reflective than you've been in the last 10 years, because a lot of Drake's music, let's keep it real, in the last 10 years has been watered down. I guess his lifestyle has kind of become a lot more about materialism and sleeping with different women every night and just doing, you know, rich people activities, basically. And his music has reflected that. And he's a lot less introspective than he was on albums like Nothing Was the Same, where he was still kind of on the come up and he had a lot to prove and a lot to adjust to and a lot of issues to kind of deal with. His life has almost seemed kind of perfect in the last like 10 years. So he's really had nothing that interesting to rap about. And that's a big reason, I think, why we've seen the downfall and lack of inspiration in his music over the last several years. And I think this kind of puts a battery in his back to have something to rap about again. There's a lot of accusations made against him that he can talk about, right? I think the most important one being Kendrick accusing him of not really being from this culture and using this culture. And as he said, not being a colleague, but being a colonizer. I think that's a big issue that Drake can touch on and defend himself on. And yeah, I mean, to me, I think the best thing he can do at this point is lay low for a couple months, work on some of the most incredible music that he can come up with, find that inspiration again. And let's not forget, he was going up against a lot of the biggest artists in the industry. It seems like almost every single major artist has turned on him. So forget all these people. Like, he never needed them anyways. They always needed him. He's always been the one giving out features. He's always been the one singing on the hooks, rapping on the verses. Like, he can carry full songs by himself. He doesn't need a feature. So in my opinion, you pull a J. Cole, you make an album with no features, you go platinum with no features, you make it some of your most introspective, self-reflective, creative work ever. You put thought into the lyrics more than you have in years. You create your own, or you stick with your own sound. You don't try to chase trends from guys like Yeat or Lil Yachty Carti or Sexy Red or whoever. You stick to what people loved you for from the beginning. You lock in with guys like Boy Wonder, 40, Vinyls, whoever, and you shut the critics up and you win the public back by proving why you're the best. And you're not going to do that by trying to battle a guy like Kendrick. Kendrick's in a different league, and I don't mean that he's a better or worse artist. I mean that he's a much better technical MC, a much better rapper, can out-rap you any day of the week. He's extremely versatile, which Drake is as well. Drake can sing, Drake can rap, Drake has done, they call him a culture vulture for a reason. He's incorporated a million different sounds and styles into his music. Both of them are extremely versatile, but Kendrick leveraged that in a much stronger way with the diss tracks he's dropped, and he can drop them at a much faster pace because he's a better technical rapper, just kind of comes easier to him. And at the same time, the guy doesn't drop that much music. So that's why, in my opinion, from the beginning, it was never worth it for Drake to engage in this whole thing. Because if he ignored that initial verse Kendrick did on Like That, where he was coming at Drake, if Drake never said anything to it, Kendrick never would have responded. Kendrick never would have kept poking at Drake. And Drake wouldn't be in the hole he's in right now. It was never worth his time. I think he's got to focus on winning back the public. I think he's got to focus on connecting to his audience on a deeper level. No Diddy, obviously through his lyrics, obviously becoming a little more introspective, not talking about the same subject matter over and over again, touching on deeper issues and reminding the world what they love him for. And he's never done that. If you break it down, he's never had an album where he is the only artist on it. Well, you've never had an album from him where there's no features. The closest we got to that was his most recent Scary Hours EP, where the only feature was J. Cole. So yeah, I think that's the most effective way that Drake can come back from this whole thing and sway the public opinion back to being in his favor, make everyone forget about this whole thing, win back over his audience and, you know, anyone who was maybe on Kendrick's side in this whole thing, and remain on top. I don't see another way. I don't think it's worth his time to continue engaging in this beef. I think it would be detrimental to, you know, feed into these allegations continuously. And I think he's realized at this point that Kendrick really is the boogeyman. I've been saying this all along. All you guys in the comments been saying I'm a, you know, Kendrick glazer, but like, it's just fact. If you've listened to Kendrick's music, you don't have to be the biggest fan of him to recognize the raw talent that he has. And Drake should have been calculated enough to know that Kendrick would be an extremely difficult opponent and should have never engaged in this in the first place. And now that he has, he should just leave it where it is, focus on his own music, his own path, and remind people why they loved him for from the beginning. And that's it. But curious to hear you guys' opinion. What else can Drake do to bounce back from this whole mess? Should he continue responding to Kendrick? Should he go into hiding for a little bit? Should he keep dropping tracks? Not even mention this beef anymore? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.